Oh, it's live. It works.
Hey,
So we're a little late.
we're here.
Well, I have an amazing assistant. What does she do? She updated all my applications, which means she also updated Facebook. So all the buttons that I normally push weren't there no more.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. The buttons are there.
So, hey, I'm excited. You guys have been, maybe one of you, two of you have heard, but we're going to do the hometown stories.
Yeah.
Doreen, I'm super honored that you're here interviewing me. I had said to you, like, you could be Oprah. Your color matches hers better than mine does.
Yes.
And I'm Rosie O'Donnell, so certainly my form matches her better than yours does. Anyway,
That's funny.
we can pretend.
Okay.
All right.
So last week, it was Friday, I think, that you promised that we will have something going at 5:30 on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it was actually the Friday before I had that I said, man, Doreen, I want to do this. And you love the idea. So, you know, hometown stories. You're going to do one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I bet you can come up with
Oprah will do one.
Oprah will do one. You can be Oprah. I bet you Doreen will come up with a good story, that's for sure. It'll be a whopper.
Yes.
But anyway.
So today we're going to talk about hometown stories, and
Yeah.
of course we're going to hear all about Deborah's story.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to hear your story.
Yeah.
And the reason I can't wait to hear your story because I went to your hometown last year.
Yeah, kind of my hometown. Like,
Kinda
the
sorta.
most difficult question anybody would ever ask me growing up is, where are you from? It's like, how do I answer that? Because I really didn't have any idea. Hey, so actually, kind of the Facebook rules of engagement, so certainly let's make Facebook happy. So we're on Remax Space Center, the Blight team, because number one, if you're on a business page, you're going to get more viewers.
Correct.
So they're gonna give it more attention and more algorithms and all that kind of good stuff. And actually, I've gone away from. I'm leaving the business page, our real estate business page, instead of a. You know, honestly, I hated that and never really did anything with the business page because. Who wants to see that there's a price reduction on the listing, or who wants to see that? You know, I have a new listing, or who wants to see that we have it? Because honestly, that's all that page was. And I never really did anything with it because for me, it had no value. And honestly, I don't think for the public that has any value.
Well, this is more fun.
But this is fun. Your hometown, the place you live, what's going on there. So we'll post stories. We'll certainly post, you know, some real estate advice where we think applicable. But more than that, we want to make it a page about our community and our people. So, so where was I going? Oh, so the rules of engagement are, because we do want to make Facebook happy, because
Of course.
they give us the
Stuff.
the free, right? So if you're watching now, you'd be doing us a huge favor by either heart or liking, because Facebook likes that a lot. So when Facebook sees that people are coming and joining the conversation, or the people that are on the conversation are making remarks, or they're hearting, or they're liking that, Facebook says, ooh, these people, they're engaging, good, let's put it out there more, let's put it out there more. And in addition to that,
We see some coming in right now, which is really good.
yeah, so all you have to do is ask and you'll receive, right?
I'm loving it.
See?
Yay.
You're going to use this one day.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you know, we really do want to, I mean, I hope I don't ever digress to the point where I only have my friends on here.
Oh, we'll have.
I really do. I mean, there are some great stories. See, I did a big faux pas this afternoon as I was doing the little quick intro thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, join us later because there's stories. And I was telling about this guy that was in the Confederate Army. Well, he wasn't in the Confederate Army. He was a black guy. So he wasn't in the Confederate Army, right?
No.
But he was a Buffalo soldier.
Oh, wow.
He was a Buffalo soldier. He wasn't. His great-grandfather wasn't. His great-grandfather was. And they got given a big stack of acres of land right in the center of League City. And he came in here one day in the afternoon last year, was just telling this story. It was
Oh,
freaking
wow.
Yeah, it was an oh wow story. So I'm going to find him and see if I can talk him into coming on.
Be interested to
'Cause that-
find out if his family is still here.
Well, he's still here and he still has family here.
Wow.
And actually one of his, he makes a point to let us know it was his, it was an in-law, the Hobbs name. Yeah.
Wow.
It was an in-law that does it. So it wasn't even their ancestry name, it was an in-law name that did that. But they had all this land up by Hobbs Road. And he talks about the story of sitting there as a kid one day in a little house off of Hobbs Road, and the bulldozers coming and starting to lay in Highway 45. Now that's a story.
Now that's a story. We need to get that.
Yeah. So mine is going to pale in comparison. And I know some people have asked, and I know they've been intrigued, and yeah, I always kind of make it a short story because I kind of always like listening to other people's stories more than I like talking about myself. But kind of the story of how I came to the States. And this will be a little bit in-depth, more version of it, because it'll talk about, some of the stuff behind it. Initially, if you've heard me share the story before, I went to go buy a motorcycle. My dad said no, and I said, great, I'll move to the States.
Because of the motorcycle? Or because you couldn't have a motorcycle?
Because he didn't allow me
to get the motorcycle.
Hey, so fire trucks are passing by. This is
we are live.
I don't guess any of my fire department friends are going to be listening. That's okay. We are live, guys. But anyway, so to tell this story, I'll start with a little bit of background.
Okay, tell us about that.
So at this point in time, I'm not living at home. I'm 18, and I'm working in the dive shop, and I was earning a whopping $2 an hour.
Was this like a dive shop, like a dive, or a dive like a bar dive?
Well, no, this was like a dive shop where you went diving. So
okay, diving. Okay.
Google it, Bonaire, some of the best diving, honestly, in the world. And what we would get there are divers. And so I'm working at the dive shop. In the evenings, I'm bartending. And during the day, man, it was a party job. So in the evenings, I'm 18 and I'm bartending. I started there at 17. And during the day, I'm taking people out on dives, filling up tanks. People are on their vacation, and they are there to have fun in their time of their life, and I got to be a part of that. So it's a pretty good job as a 17-year-old.
Of course. Sounds like fun, too.
Yeah. There were twice I closed down the bar in time to go hurry up, shower, and hitchhike out on the road to hitchhike to school, where I finished up my last couple of months of high school. But, the story kind of how I got there was... I would have done anything to get out of the house at that age.
As most of us would.
Yeah, true that. I'd actually lived in the States and spent a lot of my time in my younger years growing up in the States. And my parents had gotten a divorce. And back then, mothers got custody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my father, for whatever reasons, thought it would be in our best interest, or maybe his own personal reasons, he left the United States with 3 kids. And the youngest, I think my sister was 3 at the time, and then I had a sister 3 years younger than me. I asked my mother how old I was, and she said I was 10, but that math didn't math out right. So I was in 2nd grade when they divorced. And not long after that, I know we had just started 3rd grade when we left the States and didn't come back again.
Oh.
So he would island hop.
So he went from island to island.
We were in Holland for a very short period of time, 3 months, and then cold weather. So my father's Dutch was not his thing.
I see.
So we would island hop. So picture this, you're there with 3 girls of that age, and some days we would get to the airport, and he would decide at the airport where we were going next. And honestly, we didn't know if we would be there for a day or 2 or a few months.
But that had to be exciting. Well, not for a 10-year-old.
When you're 10, whatever you're living is just normal.
That's right.
It's not exciting. It's not exciting. When you're 10, everything is just normal.
Yeah.
And on one of these islands, he met my stepmother. So I was 11. She was 18. She didn't come from... she certainly didn't come from the Beaver Cleaver family, and she certainly didn't parent as such. And you have met her.
I have met her.
And you know how much I love her and respect her.
She is an absolutely amazing woman.
She wasn't so amazing when I was 11. She wasn't so amazing when I was 17.
Well, she was your parent.
Yeah, and she was not that big an age different. And like I said, an amazing woman, not just for, because it's not where you are, it's where you go and who you become. So at 18, I was delighted and had already for probably almost a year then not lived at home. And I started saving up my money, so figure at $2 an hour, how long that took. I'm saving up for this motorcycle. It belongs to one of my ex-teachers.
How much is a guilder compared to, let's say, $1?
So at that time, so if you go to the island, if you go to the island now, they use American dollars
Right.
as currency. Back at the time, they were using guilders, and $1 equaled a guilder 75.
Okay.
So almost a 2-to-1 ratio.
2 to 1. Okay.
But anyway, I've been saving up my guilders, and was buying this motorcycle, $600, 600 guilders. And the time comes, and I've saved up my stuff, and I go there to the island. Bonaire at the time had 9,000. My stepmother came from a small island in Statia, population 5,000. That was really a small island. Bonaire at the time was a small enough island that when I showed up at the teacher's house, my ex-teacher at that time, I'm looking over the motorcycle, I've got my cash in hand, and I'm ready to make the purchase, and there's a knock on the door. Now, from the story, you can probably guess who that was.
Sure. There's Dad.
Yeah, so I never really went into this part of the story until it was my granddaughter. I told you, I shared this story with my granddaughter 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And she'd never heard it. Only the version I gave her was, she's getting ready to take her rollerblades and rollerblade the mile down to high school. Well, Grandma shared with her that wasn't going to happen. And of course, she didn't understand why not. And I shared with her, sometimes in your youth, your judgment's a little different than it is when you mature. So at 18, I knew myself as somebody that had saved their money hard to buy this motorcycle I was really excited to get. My father knew me as somewhat reckless, somewhat of a daredevil, and somebody he probably would be burying in the next 3 to 4 months if he didn't stop me. And I have to, it's funny because I was really reflecting back when I was sharing with Stormy, my granddaughter, that story. It really hit me then to reflect back how hard that was for my father. Because here we are in this little bit of an estranged relationship.
Mm-hmm. You're 18.
And I've left home. And the last thing he would want to do is show up at that door and stop me. And, I did then what
most teenagers would do.
Well, teenagers today or teenagers back then? Because teenagers today would, I'm not going to do it on Facebook Live, but they would do something else. I think a lot of them would.
Sure.
But back in that day it was a little bit different, and I said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "I can't believe you're not going to let me buy this motorcycle." And man, I left, but I was furious. If you've been 18, you've been pissed off once or twice. I was pretty pissed off that time.
Yeah.
And the next day, so all night long, I'm stewing about it. And so the next day, I go to the travel agency, and I said, so how much is it for a ticket to the States? Now, mind you, it's been years since we've been in the States. I don't have a green card anymore. And so, of course, I needed to know what it would take to be there. So we have this discussion about, are you, what are you? And I said, well, I guess my dad's Dutch, so never had a passport before, so I guess I'm going to be Dutch. And they said, great. It takes you about 6 weeks to get a Dutch passport. I said, 6 weeks.
Can I be an American then?
Can I be any? Well, I couldn't be American. I said, so 6 weeks was going to be a little bit too long. So I said, what else? What other way could I get access into the country? They said, well, do you have a birth certificate? Where you were born? I said, well, I was born in Canada. They said, well, if you have your birth certificate, we can get you in on birth certificate. I said, I don't have a birth certificate. I certainly couldn't envision going to my dad and asking him for my birth certificate. And I'm sure he didn't have one anyway, because we'd always flown under his passport. So I said, great. So I went to, do we have any youngsters on the phone? When you send a telegram somewhere, that's the way you did it on Bonaire back then. You went to the telegram office.
Like Western Union?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Seriously. and sent a telegram to the Canadian consulate to say, I'd like my birth certificate. How long will it take for it to get here? So on average, it takes 10 to 14 days for the mail to get from Canada or the United States to Bonaire in that day.
Yeah.
So they said, well, we can send it right away. I get the telegram back that tells me that, right? And I said, well, awesome. What do you need? So I had to wire, or I don't even know how I got them the money, honestly. I don't remember that part of it. But I did what I needed to do to wire or telegram the money. And I said, great, it takes 10 to 14 days. And I think I booked my ticket out for like 20 days, 21 days. I thought, okay, we'll give them a little bit of cushion. So got that arrangement done and went immediately to the travel agency and said, book the tickets 20, 21 days out.
So where were you coming to? What area of the States were you going to? Did you know? Did you have a destination?
So I'm working at this dive shop. Captain Don Stewart ran the dive shop, and his son had come to visit the year before. And we were certainly, boyfriend, girlfriend at the time, and he had been gone for, I don't know, 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And in that stew conversation was, yeah, you could come to California and stay here with, me and my mom. So in that conversation, that was certainly a destination. And in the back of my mind, I also had, I knew my mother, who I hadn't spoken with since we left from the States or been in contact with. I knew she was somewhere in the States. So, I also had in the back of my mind that I would look her up and find her somehow. So we did the ticket to California. And I can't remember exactly when, but that birth certificate came in like a day or two before I was supposed to get on the airplane.
Oh, wow.
And that's about the time I told my dad.
So he knew nothing about your travel plans?
Well, the last time he didn't know my plans, he showed up. That knock on the door, so we certainly were going to do a repeat of that, right? So no, I went after my birth certificate came in. It was a day or two before my flight was going to leave. And I went to my dad and I said, hey, listen, I'm flying out so and such a date to the States. He said, well, you can't do that. How are you going to do that? And I said, well, I got my birth certificate.
Done.
And it's a done deal. Yeah. And I saw my dad's reaction. And yeah, he was certainly hit.
Did he at any point felt as if, or he knew that was because of his refusal about the motorcycle, buying of the motorcycle? Did he at that point knew that, or he just knew you were leaving?
Well, let's see. So the fact that he had showed up at the bar a few times, and I would serve him drinks and avoid him and not talk to him, and giving him, that teenage cold shoulder.
Yep.
He certainly knew I was upset with him. And of course, I'm sure he figured, okay, this will pass. And yeah, I think it really struck him, but I also think that after 2 weeks of me being upset, and I'm sure on one hand, he second-guessed himself a lot, and on the other, I'm going to tell you, as a father, he did the best thing he ever could have done. Because I will tell you, to this day, I've never bought a motorcycle. And to this day, if there's anybody that doesn't need to own a motorcycle, it's probably me.
Okay.
So it's funny, but in a kind of offhand, weird way, I respected that.
So take us back to, so you're leaving, it's approved, flight is ready to go.
Yeah.
What do you take at 18 years old to come to the States? What things do you pack? Just a suitcase? I knew what I would pack. Well, what I did pack.
Listen, I've seen you pack your Doreen. Do you see how I pack? I throw it in a backpack, it goes on the plane in the backpack, and we're off.
I get you. But you're 18 and you're coming to...
So I had gone through those years of traveling with my father.
Okay, that's true.
We lived for years in a suitcase.
Yeah.
And it seemed like every time we went, it got lighter and lighter. So, no, I don't know what you need to come to the States, but it certainly wasn't much. Wasn't much money either. I had $75. And my dad takes me to the airport.
Guilders or American dollars?
American dollars.
Okay.
And my dad comes to the airport that morning to see me off. And he just, because I had seen him and told him, had not really said anything else, but he showed up at the airport to see me off. And I think, so